Hello everybody and welcome to Dynamic GT League Special 4 Cup for the final race of the championship. Race 9 from the Spa Grand Prix circuit in Spa-Francorchamps. Okay, quick look at the driver's standings heading into this last race. Steve F1 leading the way, 5 points ahead of SGP. The title will be decided in this race between those two. Demon R in third on 99 points. He's 8 ahead of Tyler in fourth. Tyler not racing today. Jason sits in 5th place at the moment on 78 points, with SRI close behind him, 5 behind in 6th place. Dave the Harp and Mitch, they're both tied on 50 points. The battle for the top alpha will be decided today. In 9th place we've got tied Twilight and Formula Gary, both on 44 points, but Twilight unable to race today. We might see if Gary can gain a couple of places. Ridge Blues sits in 11th on 41 points and he's ahead of Hay in 12th. Jimmy in 13th, Conrad in 14th, tied there with Fluffy on 28 points, and Bunsell rounds out all 16 on 21 points. Right, let's take a look at the results of qualifying. More than likely Steve F1 on pole position again. No, it's not. On this occasion it's SGP sticking it on pole position with a 2:36.7. Steve F1 does join him on the front row though. On row 2 we've got SRI alongside Conrad. Good result for Conrad in qualifying there. And on row 3 we've got Mitch lining up alongside Demon R. In P7 is Fluffy, and then we've got P8 Jimmy. It'll be interesting to see how far Jimmy can get up the order in a short run to turn 1. Row 5 sees Formula Gary in P9 alongside his arch rival in P10, and that's Rich Blues, and they're ahead of David Harp in P11 and Hay in P12. On row 7 is Bunsell lining up alongside Jason, who did not set a time, and unfortunately a couple of drivers missing today, but that's not going to detract from all of the action. Okay, it's been the final qualifying session of the season. It's time for the final race of the season and the champion to be decided. And joining me on commentary for the last race of the season, it's Connor. How are you, Connor?
I'm okay, Dave. It's the finale. It's been a long race season, but let's get down to the last race.
And the drivers are going to be ready for the last race of the season, the championship to be decided between SGP and Steve F1 as we wait for the lights to go out. And away they go, SGP on pole position, but once again we see SRI, but a lot easier this time, heading straight into the lead towards Licom.
Yeah, he didn't have to push anyone out the way this week as he go. He's got a decent lead. There's the cars battle for position behind. He's got 4 wide there.
Looks like we've got a car facing the wrong way round as Rich and Hay go a little bit wide. I'll tell you what though, Mitch has had a decent start. He's battling for 2nd place with SGP. Where's Steve F1 gone? Oh, he's dropped down to 5th place at the moment as through Eau Rouge we go for the first time of many today. Mitch, I think, just tagged the side of SGP there and ended up going through Eau Rouge rather than up Eau Rouge.
Yeah, it's normally the other way around, isn't it, Dave? Normally Steve F1's the one to keep his position, but SGP's done really well now as he's going to be challenged into the corner. Is he? No, Jimmy actually looking to be the one on the move at the minute.
Oh, but now Mitch is going for it quite late on there. He goes for the move, but he's going to run deep. He's not going to be keeping that position. SGP slices back ahead, and Mitch, I nearly forgot who it was. Mitch going to have to be careful of Jimmy now. But yeah, Steve F1, normally he's the one that's, as you mentioned, been keeping his position. Maybe he's been a little more cautious today, and as I say that, he's going up the inside of Jimmy through the long downhill right-hander. Tricky corner just before No Name.
Yeah, he can't let SGP get too many places ahead of him, or else that gap will close up. As we just look in the cars, as we have the Toyotas going sideways there. I think that was Bunsell in the background.
Tell you what, Steve F1 is on the move. He's taken Jimmy in one corner. 2 corners later, he's made a move on Mitch into Pouon. He's brave that, because Pouon is a corner that the VWs will struggle with. But there's a lovely move from Steve F1 as we see David up in the background trying to cover off Connor. And I was going to say attack Fluffy, but he's dipped a wheel on the grass. And Jason into the barrier as well. So he's all kicking off on the opening lap here. And just to remind everybody, the gap between SGP and Steve F1 is 5 points in favour of Steve F1. So if SGP wants to win the championship, he needs cars between himself and Steve F1, and at the moment there isn't any.
Yeah, we just saw Jimmy going off into gravel there, and that's going to set a few cars up behind him. But yeah, going back to what you were saying about the gap, Dave, I think if SGP wins, he needs Steve F1 to finish third or lower.
Yeah, I think it's lower than third actually, because, well, if it finishes third, then there'd be the same on points, and it'd go to count back of races won, and then second places, if that's equal, as the drivers are making their way through Blanchimont. A bit close between Demonar and Bunsell and Fluffy and Jimmy and Connor there as well. Gary got a bit of a gap though.
Yeah, just tight through, going through that fast right left-hander there. As we see, SRI got a decent gap, but you know he's going to have them VWs closing in, and Mitch is not that far behind.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, SGP's in an interesting situation as we've got Fluffy side by side with Jimmy, I believe it is. Demonar having a look up the inside as well, but thinks better of it. So Fluffy keeps hold of the position on this occasion. Jimmy on the outside, and Jason's recovered quite well after being in the barrier. He's already onto the back of the pack.
Yeah, Jason didn't take part in qualifying, started at the back. I don't know if that was not realising the race was starting or... But yeah, he's recovering well. He's had a couple of incidents, but he's still there with the pack. As we see, Rich Blues is going to go for a move on Gary now.
Oh, it's Bunsell all wobbly over the top of Raddy on there. But yeah, Rich Blues is making the move on Gary. Connor sat behind two Subarus. It could be a little tricky. He's going to make it 3 wide. It could be risky. He's going to have a tight line, and he's trying to squeeze across. Rich is ahead, so that's kind of saved Connor a little bit there.
Yeah, he's going to go for the move around the outside of Richie. He's going to have the inside line. Yes, he gets that move done there, and that's a good move.
Just about, well, you say it's a good move. I'm going to say, I don't know, I weren't watching. Or 3 wide in the background, as once again we see SRI leading the way. Oh, Clobbers a bollard though. And interestingly, they have done some interesting work around this track in that gratuitous close up there of SRI.
Yeah, my camera nearly broke there zooming in on SRI.
His mirrors are the same, that's why he has so many crashes. He looks in the mirror, they break. I love you really, Ray. Okay, so Gary, got to be careful going through Pouon, because if you dip a wheel on the outside, that could happen as Bunsell. Big crash in the background.
Yeah, we just saw Gary do a wheelie there, and it just knocked a few cars off. As we got Demonar on the outside, just a bit, doesn't want to be on them marbles out there as he keeps the position. He's got Jason's come through as well. We've got Dave the Harp and Hay recovering from their incidents as Hay goes for a move on Fluffy, and that's an Alpha on an Alpha.
Yeah, it's interesting. I just want to say, good driver awareness from Demonar there. Gary comes back on the track, dirty tyres. If Demonar had gone for the apex of the corner, Gary would have absolutely punted him. So Demonar may look like he went deep, but was just given room. SGP is now closed in on SRI, and guess what? Steve F1 is closing in on SGP. I mean, SRI, we've seen him lead a few races in this championship. None of them, unfortunately, have come to full fruition in way of a win, but he's got a chance here today because when it comes to tyres and fuel around here, tyres shouldn't be too bad on the Subaru, but the fuel, if Ray doesn't push too hard, then he can do a one-stop, same as the VW guys. I think everybody can do a one-stop unless they push too hard. If they push too hard, they're going to be on a two-stop, and if you're going to two-stop, it's better to pit nice and early. But SGP is kind of in a catch-22 situation. If he overtakes SRI and pulls away, Steve F1 may overtake SRI, and SGP is in a no-win situation. But if SGP stays where he is and keeps SRI in this race and Steve F1 behind him, he can perhaps try and back Steve F1 up into Mitch, or potentially bring SRI into the battle between the two championship leaders at the moment.
Yeah, and it's obviously we've seen in a few races that SRI manages to keep his own in front of cars, and he's not going to make it easy for SGP. As we go back to a battle here with Demonar and looking to get past Rich Blues now, is he?
He is, but Rich going defensive, and rightly so, fighting for his position. Jason having a sneaky look now on Demonar as David Hart closes in as well. Jason may even be able to have a look at Rich here, but no, Rich closes the door, covers that off. Interestingly though, Jason's going to be on the outside for No Name, and he's not going to like it, that VW, although he manages to get ahead of Demonar just in time.
Yeah, he just managed to get through there. It's good driving from these lots so far. As we see Bunsell just running off track there. He wants to be careful on the curbs in that Toyota.
Demonar's up the inside of Jason into Pouon. If Jason, he's going to have to be careful here if he runs a little bit wide, as he has done onto the AstroTurf. Manages to save it though. If he'd have been in a Toyota, he'd have done a Bunsell.
Yeah, it's weird to see that the VW getting sideways normally screaming the front tyres as we go back to this battle of front three, which is really closed up in this middle sector as they come round the corner, just leaning on the car a bit there. SGP trying to get on the back of SRI.
Like I said, I don't know if SGP's in a position where, I mean, he could just overtake SRI and pull away. I just don't know if that's going to be what his game plan is. He needs cars between himself and Steve F1. It's the only way he can win the championship.
Yeah, I actually don't think SGP's confident enough to overtake SRI anywhere, because SRI seems to be doing what he can to stay in front, as he just goes a little bit deep there, and SGP's getting a good run on him, but he clouts the curb. Back to Conrad in 5th.
Well, Mitch is closing in a bit there as De Minaur's managed to make his way past Rich. We've not seen that, but David Harp's got through as well as David Harp heads into the pit stop. That's an early pit stop. Jason in there as well, so they're definitely on for the 2 stops, so they're not saving fuel today. I mean, I think the interesting thing for SRI here is we're 8 minutes in and he's not really been attacked yet. So if I was SRI, I wouldn't even bother defending. If he defends, they're going to be on him even faster. If he's had a big wobble on the way up Eau Rouge, that's got him out of shape. He may just about manage to stay ahead. But yeah, so down here, I wouldn't defend. If SGP is going to go for it, he'll go for it. If he doesn't, then that would be the signal to me to not defend, stick on the racing line, because SGP doesn't want to overtake. So yeah, there's been no attempt of even getting close there. So if I was SRI, I would not go defensive here.
Yeah, but just looking at the time delta there, Dave, we were speaking about last race, was it Steve F1 was just driving enough, or was it SGP? No, it was SGP was just driving to a delta to recover, and you notice there that SGP set a 38.0 and then his next lap's a 39.7. So this race pace maybe helped the VWs with the fuel, and it could push them both ahead of SRI later in the race.
It definitely could, and yeah, I mean, like say, 39.7 there. Well, I know that SGP can do 37s, so yeah, this is what is making me think he is intentionally sitting there behind SRI. I mean, take nothing away from SRI, always big sideways, heading into Blanchimont. Rich dips a wheel as well. Ooh, Jimmy's going to have to be careful, there's not really anywhere for him to go at the moment, and Bunsell manages to survive it. But yeah, the lap times there, it definitely suggests to me that SGP is not on the attack. And interestingly, Steve F1 doesn't need to attack either, because for Steve F1 it doesn't matter if he finishes behind SGP as long as it's right behind SGP.
Yeah, and he is just tucked up behind. I mean, we don't know whether the 2 EWs could be saving fuel as well as driving on the back of SRI, or Steve F1's just got a little gap there. He could be just watching his pace, and it might help him out as Mitch comes through there.
He came through there, went out there as well.
There, didn't he?
He did, as Brundle would say. Okay, so yeah, SGP is right up Ray's gear, or SRI's bumper. Or as we see Bunsell and Jimmy wide through Blanchimont, or on a little tap between Bunsell and Hay. I'm sure they'll be telling each other there's plenty of room there. Rich manages to stay ahead as Fluffy trying to make a move on Jimmy. Jimmy having absolutely none of it though. Hay into the pits. Oh, Rich has a big tank slapper, and he's now going to get swamped.
He just wanted some camera there, didn't he? He wanted some race footage there, but we see the front 3 still just in position, just nobody attacking each other, as Steve F1 actually gets a better run on SGP coming up Eau Rouge as they come across the top, and SGP got a good run on SRI as well. I think SRI might have to defend this time.
Quite possibly, yeah. He's looking to go defensive straight away, so basically saying, do not go up the inside of me here. If SGP is going to go for it, as he is going round, I mean, that's the right way for SRI to do it. He defended so early that basically said, look, if you're going to overtake me. If not, I'm going to stick here. And to be fair, it's worked well. I'm still thinking SGP didn't want to make the move because he was close enough there. I'm saying that Steve F1 was close enough going through Eau Rouge that they could have easily have attacked each other.
Yeah, but look what every time they fight, Mitch and Conrad look like they're getting closer in towards them, and this could help SGP if these two get involved in this battle.
Well, that's kind of what I've been hinting at, that SGP I think needs to do this, because if he can bring Mitch and Connor into this situation as well, then it could become extremely painful for Steve F1. And the thing is, I mean, Steve F1 and SGP, they're in the same car, so it's not like one's got an advantage over the other. Connor, though, making a move on Mitch by the looks of it. Good exit of Pouon up the inside into the, I think it's the college chicane, this one, and or the university chicane, sorry. And yeah, so Connor making the move, and Conrad, got to be careful there, showing decent pace, so he has an opportunity of catching up to the front pack. Fluffy, though, he's got Jason, Bunsell, Rich, Gary, Jimmy, and who's that? Dave the Harp, who has made a pit stop. Jason made a pit stop as well. So yeah, frantic pack as ever as Jimmy, Rich having a look at the inside of Gary, but can't quite get it done.
Yeah, just want to point out Bunsell there coming out of the Pouon into the next right-hander, just sideways with the lights flashing. So the two Subarus get into each other there.
Aye, that they do. And Rich still hanging in there next to Gary. Davey Opp around the outside. Got to be careful. He's gone too far around the outside there. He's dipped a wheel. Now he's got to be careful on the exit. And a few of the guys able to use the AstroTurf on the exit of Blanchimont. Toyotas, yeah, not so much. Davey Harp having a look up the inside. Can he get the move done? Fluffy covers off Jason. Davey Harp can't get it done. Bunsell into the pits. This is absolutely brilliant. You know what? In previous seasons, we'd have seen absolute annihilation with that many cars into the final chicane at Spa. I've got to say, the drivers are impressing me at the moment. Steve F1 has dropped off. He is definitely not on the attack. He's saving fuel.
Yeah, he's just realised that SGP's got a game plan. He doesn't want to get involved in it. And that thing is, though, Steve F1's got to be careful about how much he wants to save, because you've got Conrad and Mitch are still there, and they could get involved in this. SGP's going to look around the outside again. Yeah, SRI's got that covered off nicely again there as he hits the apex.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still thinking that SGP is still running to that game plan, isn't he? I mean, to be fair, SRI, I mean, take nothing away from SRI. It doesn't matter if the car behind isn't really attacking you that much. This is pressure. Because if SRI knows if he makes a mistake and wipes out SGP, that's championship over. That's a situation nobody wants to put himself in. So for SRI, he is driving absolutely brilliantly at the moment. Oh, Connor all over the AstroTurf. Got to be so careful, but that gap is coming down.
Yeah, but if I was SGP, I would have been trying to get past SRI now, just as Steve F1's got a bit of a gap, and then maybe SRI can push Steve F1 back into Conrad, but it just doesn't. SRI just seems to be doing enough to stay ahead, and SGP doesn't look comfortable getting past, as we see the two Alphas going side by side through Pouon.
That they are. I will tell you, it is Pouon, not Lon. But I'll let you off. You're northerner.
Yeah.
Oh, that's got all very tight there for Dave the Harp and Fluffy as Gary went sweeping around the outside. Jimmy now making the move on Fluffy as well. I mean, I do think, you know, the SRI may be running a bit to a delta. He's on a fuel run. Because we've seen a couple of races this season where he's been in a brilliant position, but he's messed up his strategy a little bit. So if he can get his strategy right here, he's got a chance. SGP, I think he's got to start making a move now.
Yeah, he is now, as you say it.
He's not.
Just going to get the cutback though, because SRI's gone deep. He's going to go around the outside. The Subaru will get a better exit there, surely, yeah.
It
as
will.
We just go, and we're still in the same positions, Dave. We're still top five, still the same as we've got Demon Oz in the background there.
Yeah, Demon Oz starting to close in as well. But Connor is now on the back of the pack, of the lead three. Okay, so this is what SGP has been working towards. This is why he hasn't been overtaken. And there's an interesting factor that comes into this as well. These guys, yeah, SGP, Steve F1 have been saving fuel. If SRI hasn't and needs a two-stop, he could be in trouble. But Conrad and Mitch behind and Demon are behind. If they've burnt too much fuel, they'll be two-stopping, which means they're going to get a massive undercut on the leaders, and SGP kind of needs that as well. So I think SGP is really looking at attacking SRI but not making the move. Oh, SRI's gone a little bit too deep on the brakes. SGP is going to take the lead of the race now. Is Steve F1 going to capitalise on the mistake? He's going to try.
Yeah, that was unlucky from SRI. Did really well up until that point. Just tried to be a bit brave on the brakes and just didn't work out. Now Steve F1's going to look at the outside line there. I don't think he can hang it out there. Conrad looks at him. No, just not close enough.
Careful, Conrad just taps that throttle pedal, rear end sticks out. But yeah, this is kind of what I'm looking at the moment. If Conrad or Mitch pit before the leading 3 cars, they get a massive undercut, which is something that SGP would not mind. Steve F1, however, wouldn't want that. But if SGP and Steve F1 have been saving fuel, they can obviously run considerably longer or have a much shorter pit stop. So it's very interesting what's happening now. I mean, is Steve F1 going to attack SRI now? Does he need to? I think he would be aiming at getting past Woody. Dave doesn't want to get caught up in a battle. No, I mean, I don't think he necessarily needs to, but it'll be better off for him if he does, because if he's ahead of SRI and the only car in front of him is SGP, he's in a winning situation. So I think for Steve F1, that's the way I would look at it. He doesn't have to overtake SGP, he just has to stay in his mirrors. Yeah, it's going to be tight there on the outside, doesn't want to be there. If Conrad comes through, he's going to get a good run on them here. It's a lovely run through Blanchimont for those 4 cars. Mitch there as well. Mitch has dropped off a little bit, maybe trying to save some fuel. SRI goes defensive. Steve F1 sweeps around the outside and up the inside. It's SRI into the pits, and it's before the 20 minutes. How much fuel has he got on board? We're not going to get to see, I don't believe. Okay, because that's crucial for me as to whether he's managed to save enough fuel, or sorry, he's got enough fuel to get to the end. 20% he's got there, he's got enough. He's got more than enough to fill the tank and get to the end. Oh, this is interesting. So SRI now has an opportunity to get a massive undercut as Hay trying to make a move on Jimmy into Lacombe. Jason got a bit of a gap, so is Dave the Harp and Gary as Fluffy hugs the inside line. Jimmy trying to get a better exit. Oh, ahead the 2 Alphas, a little bit of a coming together there. Yeah, where's SRI and Conrad going to come out though? Still in the pits by the looks of it. Did Conrad pit as well, did he? Oh, okay, yeah. Interesting. Oh, the Alphas side by side up Eau Rouge. They both managed to survive just, but here comes Jimmy absolutely flying as Fluffy and Hay bump doors again, and Jimmy saying, I'll take the grass, but I'll also take the 2 positions, thank you very much. Yeah, just noticed as well, Dave, when Conrad pitted, he had 0%. So he's not going to get the end, even if he fills it up, surely. No, the only way he'd get to the end, and don't call me Shirley, the only way he'd get to the end, I didn't even plan that one, the only way he could get to the end if he does a lot of fuel saving. The other option is absolutely go for it, may have to do another stop, but don't wait too long to do it. SRI, he's now in 11th place, so there's a gap between himself and Conrad, and a car between them. There is Bunsell. Conrad will be in the background somewhere, but Dave the Harp and Fluffy now battling as Dave the Harp going deep in No Name makes a bit of a mess of the grass, misses the wall, but now he's going to come under attack from Hay. Yeah, that was just a bit of a moment there for him as he come through. Oh, Hay's going to have a look as well. He is. Yeah, I think Jimmy follows him through as well. Yeah, I think Dave just got a little bit too hot on the way into Pouhon, ran a little bit too wide. I think he might need some allergy tablets because, actually Fluffy needs the allergy tablets because he's got hay fever at the moment, the way those 2 have been going at it. Okay, look at the lap times. I'm interested. 38s and 39s for SGP and Steve F1 so far. That was behind SRI. I don't think that's their genuine pace. I think they can go considerably faster. That's nothing against SRI at all, but I don't think this lap time will be a 38 or a 39. I don't either, and neither of them heading into the pits. Mitch is though, so Mitch has done an additional lap over SRI and Conrad, and he's got 5% of fuel. Is Demonar going to head into the pits, I wonder? Yes, he is. He's into the pits on 0%. He may be able to fill up and get to the end though. Even though he's in the Toyota. Jason carried on, but he's already pitted. Gary has already pitted. Hay, I think, has already pitted, and so has Dave the Harp. So we've got many different strategies going on here. But the other thing we've got going on is Steve F1 doing exactly what I said he'd need to. And by the way, 2:36. Yeah, that's their real pace. Yeah, that's what they can push, and they should.
be out on their own at the minute, and look at the gap that they've got down to Jason coming through Eau Rouge. So they've got plenty of time to come in, get some tyres and fuel, as Steve F1's going to go for a move down the inside.
Interesting, he does not need to do this, but maybe he sort of wants to go down the approach of, yeah, okay, I may only need to finish right behind you, but no, I'm going to go and win the race instead. I mean, that's the better way to do it, really. But SGP, I mean, it's an interesting one, though, because Steve F1 has been able to follow SGP and SRI, saving however much fuel is saved, and SGP may now just think, you know what, if he wants to get any kind of undercut on Steve F1, the only way he can do it is to be behind him.
Yeah, we just see Conrad's right on the back of SRI now. He had a car between them before.
Well, you know what, this is quite interesting because SRI is stuck there with Dave the Harp as he's trying to sort of elbow his way through a little bit, and I can understand SRI getting his elbows out a little bit because he's in a situation where he's racing for the win here, but I think he may be getting a little bit held up. Where's Mitch, by the way? Well, Demon R's managed to jump Mitch in the pit stops. So, Demon R ahead of Mitch as Jimmy having a look up the inside at Connor. Conrad got to be careful to not go too wide as Dave the Harp did earlier, but that is now SRI through. This is fantastic stuff.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting finish, I think, as Conrad looks. He's just having a look there. He's just trying to size up a move there, is he? But he's not going to get it on this lap. And yeah, just saying what you... Damon has jumped Mitch, and that's going to be interesting come the end, because I think them 4 cars are battling for the last spot on the podium, as I think the VWs are first and second again.
Yeah, well, Steve F1 very nearly binned it in Blanchimont then, but this is the interesting situation now. Steve F1 doesn't pit, SGP has to. And yes, he is. He's into the pits, and he was a very late move, but it was to basically, it was to not let Steve F1 know. 5%. Okay, he had no option of going for the extra lap anyway. But now he gets an undercut on Steve F1. However, SRI here, if he looks in his mirrors, if they weren't already broken, he'd be seeing every car behind him pretty much as Dave the Harp is trying to attack him. Jason pits for the second time with 22% of fuel, so it'll be a short stop for him. More cars into the pits as well. Dave the Harp and Jimmy, I think.
Yeah, Conrad just tried to get round the outside SRI and it didn't quite work. Well, Hayes going to look at the inside.
He is. I want to know where SGP is going to come out, because SRI was behind SGP. Oh, I think Fluffy just hit the wall, and there is SGP coming out of the pit. So SRI potentially has net lead of the race here. Demon R has jumped Mitch and SGP through the pit stops, but I'm not seeing the interesting thing here. Normally, 2 laps of an undercut, you're going to be gaining 12 seconds. There isn't a 12-second gap between SGP and SRI here.
No, the SRI has got to just be careful and just size up what he's going to do next, as he's going to look at the inside of Gary straight away.
Oh, I don't think Gary saw him going for that move, and I can kind of understand why Gary went for the corner there. It was a little bit late from SRI. I think SRI is going to have to let Gary back through. Yes, he has done. SGP, watching Bunce will go big time sideways out of the Kemmel chicane. But yeah, I mean, this is fascinating for me in the... Is this because SGP and Steve F1's pace, once everybody else had pitted, was so fast that nobody else has managed to get a big boosted undercut on them? Or have they just been stuck in the pack in the battle here? Because SRI is technically still stuck behind Gary.
But did SGP take tyres on? He might have just filled up and decided not to take tyres if his tyre wear was okay, but we'll never know. Yeah. As the 2 guys behind just decided that they didn't want to take the corner there.
One went wide, the other went wider. But yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see where Steve F1 is. I mean, it'll be interesting to see how much further actually Steve F1 could go in this race. We're already 26 minutes in. SGP, we know, was saving fuel early on and was able to, he only had 5% when he pitted. SRI needs to get a move on though. He needs to get past Gary because Conrad is still right there behind him. Demon R now on the back of Conrad, and Steve F1 is into the pits on 0%. Oh, this is fascinating. SRI still stuck, but Gary goes defensive into Blanchimont. Now compromises exit. Connor gets a decent run on them, but so does Demon R. This is going to be fascinating as SRI having a look up the inside. It's twitchy under braking. Oh, and it's tight as well as Connor gets boxed in, and that's allowing Demon R to close in. Oh, this is crazy. Oh, Gary's
boxed
off.
in by the boxer engines.
Yeah, Gary, I don't know if he was forced wide or went wide, but he's now wheel to wheel with Connor heading towards turn 1. SGP around the outside of Gary and Demon R, who's having a look up the inside but can't quite get it done. And Steve F1 has come out of the pits ahead.
Yeah, that's a big gap that he's got there as well.
But the interesting thing with that is that's not how things would normally go. Is he short filled? Has he not taken tyres? As the pack? Has Gary been earning some extra money, holding everybody up?
Yeah, SRI's in the second now, and if he's filled up, then SGP's really in trouble as he's getting stuck in. He wants to really start making moves now, because that is a massive gap that Steve F1's got. If you just look at him where he is compared to SGP.
Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised there. Let's see SGP's lap times. Well, his last lap was a 2:31, but that was having gone through the pits. A bit difficult to sort of calculate those times, but let's see. Demon R, he pitted at 2:41. Okay, that's partly down to it. 2:41 lap time. That's off the pace by a good 3-4 seconds. You add tyres onto that as well for SGP. That could explain the gap between Steve F1 and SGP. Also, Steve F1 only needed to put enough fuel in for 13-14 minutes.
Yeah, so I don't think he's took. He can't have took tyres there. Do you think, Dave? Because that's surely a shorter pit stop than what would be necessary.
Yeah, I think he's not taken tyres. He's taken a gamble, but that gamble has put him a long way ahead. So yeah, I can think he's not taken tyres. If he'd have taken tyres, I think he'd have still come out ahead, to be fair, but it would have been a bit riskier. I mean, he's in a situation now where he can just turn the engine down and cruise, just make no errors. I mean, once again, his lap times heading up to the pit stop were absolutely phenomenal, 36ers. We know SGP can do that pace as well. Whether SGP can get past Conrod, get past SRI and catch up Steve F1 now, I don't know if he can do it. And even if he can, he needs to take other people with him, because he needs cars between himself and Steve F1.
Yeah, he needs ideally these two guys here to be up there, but they're not, and they've still got, Conrad may have another pit stop to do if he hasn't been looking after the fuel. You know what, you're right there. I mean, Gary, he's just headed into the pits, as has Bunsell. So I think they're on a 2-stop strategy. But yeah, I mean, we mentioned earlier on, or you asked the question earlier on, Conrad pitted, after 18 minutes, and he had 0%. So yeah, could have another stop to do. But yeah, I mean, I don't know if Steve F1 has pulled an absolute blinder here, or something weird has happened in terms of these guys have just got stuck in the pack, because my experience of this particular track is it's a long one, so you get a massive boosted undercut. Yeah, it just hasn't worked out for any of them. Steve F1, you know, he can drive to a Delta now, as you were saying, and I still don't, not unless his pace was great, as SGP's going to dive down the inside. No, that's just a look there to try and see where he can get past, and they carry on again. But yeah, Steve F1 will be rubbing his hands together, and I think it'll be, it's his championship definitely at the minute, but SGP will not give this one up.
No, definitely. I mean, I must admit, I mean, if you're SGP, you may even be questioning, does Steve F1 need to do another pit stop? We've seen him do that this championship, as Jimmy tries to make his way past Fluffy, but Fluffy having absolutely none of it. Dave the Arp, I tell you what though, we've got second to pretty much last, all on the same straight, apart from 2 cars that have just pitted. This is great. I've got to say, this is very exciting stuff. There is more to be won here than just a championship. There's a lot of drivers that are sort of tied on points heading into this race. I think Fluffy though, he's a lot further down the order than he would really like to be, but SGP now, I don't know if his head's going to have dropped or what, but I would have expected him to have made moves already on Conrad and SRI, really.
Yeah, I think SJP's driven really well this season, but Steve F1's just been the class of the field in that VW, and SJP, you know, he's had his moments, but this race could be his downfall. He's going to look the outside of Conrad there.
Yeah, trying the outside of Blanchimont, bit tricky to do, especially in the VW. Well, no, that's Blanchimont. So looking at the outside on the way to it. Connor looking like he's defending the inside. Yes, he is. SGP just lets him know that he's still there. Conrad squeezing him a little bit mid-corner. Side by side they go. This could compromise the both of them, as Demon R now is right up there. Chuff and Mitch not far behind, and Jason, and then I think it was Fluffy and Rich. And yeah, this is mental. Oh, SGP is ahead. He's got a better exit out of the corner and manages to get ahead into turn 1.
Yeah, I think Conrad's just given him the position there to let him have a run up Eau Rouge, and got Demon R's right on his bumper now though, so he wants to be careful. He could lose another position.
Either that he could. Fluffy having a look at Dave the Harp, side by side. That's kind of like Perez and Oconish from a couple of years ago as they made their way through Eau Rouge. I don't think Demon R's made the move on Conrad, no he hasn't, but interestingly, I mean, we saw SGP making the move into turn 1, as in the background it gets very busy. Conrad trying to make the move on SGP defends, Conrad goes around the outside, now Demon R up the inside, and that might be move done, is it? I can't tell because we've skipped from the camera. No, Conrad's still behind. Oh, Jimmy, big sideways.
Yeah, just I think that compromised Conrad there. He just went to move to the inside, and SGP moved over at the same time and just blocked Conrad a bit. So yeah, that gave Demon R the position there.
That it has. Conrad still trying to attack Demon R though towards No Name, and in the background we've got Fluffy under pressure from Jimmy, Dave Harp under pressure from Rich Blues, as well as Jimmy runs a little bit wider than he would have wanted. Conrad making a move up the inside into Pouon, but is he going to be able to hold on to it? Takes the tighter line and manages to make the move. Nice overtake there.
Yeah, we're just saying, Dave, as well, we look at the lap times from these guys, 2:38, and then we went back to Jimmy, and Jimmy's doing 2:29s with the boost, so that's what's keeping these guys in the fight, and it's second to last, all nearly there. The two cars that have pitted not that long ago are starting to catch up as well.
That they are. The only one that's being boring is Steve F1 out at the front as SRI leads the train of cars. I mean, I kind of feel sorry for SRI at the moment. He did everything right. Oh, big sideways from Dave the Harp there. I don't know what caused it. I just saw him heading towards the barrier. He's managed to save it. Little contact there as well now with Fluffy, but Dave's got to be careful. He's going to have dirty tyres heading into the fastest corner on the track. I think he'll be alright though, because he's got a Subaru behind him to push him along. But no, he's big wide. Oh, he's off. Oh, big tank slapper. Nailed the side of Rich. I think Rich may be alright though. He's in the Subaru.
Yeah, Conrad there we go. Conrad's in the pits. I think he's left that a bit too late now, as he's going to have to recover in these last 5 minutes to try and get any sort of points.
Yeah, I mean, you're probably looking at about a 20-second stop anyway. Yeah, it's going to be costly for him. SGP's all over the back of SRI. Mitch is all over the back of Demon R. Jason is there as well. This is absolutely fantastic racing. So SRI, I do feel he's done enough to win the race here today, but he's still got to keep SGP behind him if he wants to hold on to that second place. And I've got to say, this just shows that there is no sort of friendly, I'll let you through, you're fighting for a championship between the admins.
Yeah, SRI's driven great again today, and he's gone defensive as well, as we've seen this in the early stages of the race. But I think SGP's fighting more for this position than we saw in the first stages of the race.
Yeah, definitely. I think you're absolutely right there. I mean, the only way that SGP wins this now is Steve F1 either disconnects or has a crash or has to pit. So he may as well have some fun and attack SRI, try and make the move. Demon R is still in 4th place, just ahead of Mitch. One thing these two will have to be careful of though is if they start battling a bit too much, the pack will be on them pretty damn quickly, as we're now into 4 minutes left of the race, which I think might mean, this could be the penultimate lap.
Yeah, 4 minutes left of the season as well, and Steve F1 will be happy with this, and SGP maybe a bit disheartened, but he's going to still try and get that second place.
SRI still holding on to it at the moment, doesn't defend into the chicane, or maybe turns in a little bit late. Perhaps didn't see that SGP had snuck up the inside there, but he's still giving him absolutely no quarter. SGP maybe felt that he was a little bit risky on that one and tucked him behind and let SRI carry on. It would be the fair thing to do. Oh, got to be careful, don't run too wide, because then you've got no grip for Stavelot too. But the VW should have I was going to say a great run, but he just hasn't got the grip behind the Subaru.
Yeah, that attitude of that VW has changed from what we've seen in the first half of the race. He's definitely on the attack now. He's going to look around the outside again. He's seen this against Conrad, but will he back out of it?
He is. He's made SRI take the tighter line, but the Subaru can handle it. SRI is going to defend now, heading up into the final chicane. SGP going around the outside as Steve F1 is now starting the last lap of the race. SRI parking it on the apex absolutely brilliantly, and that has just brought everybody back into the fight for second. SGP he's got a tiny gap, but I've got to say, this is really exciting. He's going for it. No, he's not. Yes, he is. No, he's not. Yes, he is.
Yeah, the VW won't get a good look at the drive. That's all right. Just got out of the corner there.
Oh, just want to let you know as well, Jason has managed to get ahead of Mitch. I think he did it into the final corner and turn one there, as they're banging doors a little bit down towards Eau Rouge. So SGP still stuck behind SRI. Can SRI get a decent run through Eau Rouge? He's very sideways, or a little slippery through Radion, but he's got a decent run. SGP's about the right kind of distance here to really give it a go into the Camel chicane.
Yeah, that's someone who we haven't really spoke about. Dave Jason started at the back of the grid. He went off in the first lap, and he's in there in fifth as we see SGP going for that manoeuvre again. Just hasn't worked out for him, really, has it?
It hasn't, but you know what? Jason is now really pressuring the back of Demon R. So Jason's managed to get past Mitch and now attacking Demon R. We saw those two guys sort of side by side into Blanchimont earlier. SGP having a look once again. He's ahead. Oh no, he's not. The SRI is going to do the switch back on him. I mean, you're absolutely right. The nature of the way SGP is driving this half of the race compared to the first half, very different. That first half was definitely conservative. This is not. This is on the charge, on the push. And look at this, absolutely mental. Everybody apart from Steve F1 on the one straight. SGP looking again up the inside, but he can't do it. He needs to make sure he doesn't understeer into SRI and push him off. But this is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, we've got second to sixth now, all in the same corner. Whoever gets this wrong could be looking at paying the price as we go into the bus stop chicane.
Absolutely right. Steve F1 has got round Stavelot 2. He's on the run towards the finish line and the championship. SGP has dropped a little bit back from SRI. He's now going to come under pressure. This is not a point he wants to come under pressure. SRI has ran wide though, but Demon R making a move, and Jason massively wide. That could compromise him as well, as Demon R and SGP side by side heading towards Blanchimont. I don't think either is going to risk much here though, are they? Giving each other plenty of room. But yeah, SGP manages to just get ahead into Blanchimont. He may still have one last attempt to chuck it up the inside of SRI, as Steve F1 is going to take the victory. How dull and boring of him. He's going to take the championship as well. But what is happening for that battle for second? SRI is still in second place ahead of SGP. What a result it'll be for him. But Mitch and Jason side by side, fluffy big sideways.
Yeah, that was a crazy last corner there, and SRI, I think he'd be happy with second place. He did everything he could in that race, and yeah, very good.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. I've got to say, I think that's the closest, other than Steve F1. I mean, okay, I said he was being boring and all, but to be fair, he did absolutely nothing wrong. He drove brilliantly in that race, did exactly what he needed to do, and unless there's penalties, which I can't say I saw him do anything wrong, he's going to be crowned two-time champion. But yeah, brilliant from him. But I've got to say, I feel for SRI. He drove a race there worthy of the victory.
Yeah, he was just unlucky, wasn't he? He could have easily had that, and it's just unfortunate to see him drop behind there.
Yeah, definitely. But at the same time, I mean, to be fair, I think if I was SRI, I would be like absolutely delighted with that result. He legitimately led the race and legitimately held everyone other than Steve F1 behind him. And I wouldn't be surprised, had Steve F1 come out of the pits behind SRI, I don't think there'd have been any easy overtakes there, not with the way that SRI was driving there, because we know that SGP, I think actually SGP in the practice had faster pace than Steve F1. So for SGP to not be able to get past SRI, Steve F1 may have found it difficult as well. So yeah, I don't know if Steve F1 realises just how well he managed his strategy in that weird situation, because normally he'd have pitted and come out way behind those guys that had already pitted, but it wasn't to be, and it's worked for him brilliantly.
Yeah, I think actually if we think about it, that SGP's strategy of keeping everyone in the mix actually helped Steve F1, because we know that Steve F1 must have been in fuel saving mode. That enabled him to have an extra lap where he did a 2:36.2.
Yeah.
SGP had rejoined behind the pack, and I think that's what actually has give him the win there.
You know what? You could be absolutely right, because if SGP has taken tyres and Steve F1 didn't, that's 6 seconds. And if SGP has then been stuck in the pack doing lap times in the 2:40s, that's another 4 seconds. So that's 10 seconds total, with a couple of seconds give and take for getting. Yeah, so you could be absolutely right there, Connor. You could be absolutely right, and that may be how it has resulted in ending that way.
Yeah, I mean, if we just look down the order at where SGP was when he came out, he wouldn't have wanted to come out of the pits and look at that pack going into Eau Rouge, but that's where he found himself, and we have to just say that he did still manage to get third place, and I think that was still a really good drive. But Steve F1 was in a league of his own that race, from pace to strategy to getting that gap in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, what I will say though is, I mean, I kind of remember probably 3-4 races into the championship where I think Steve F1 had won every race apart from one that Tyler had won, and he had a massive gap. So the fact that SGP managed to close that gap up enough that we ended up with the championship coming down to the last race and only 5 points between them. Honestly, I don't think 4 races ago I would have seen that coming. But SGP went on a rampage, well, not a rampage, but he went on a run of numerous victories, absolutely flying, closed that gap and made it what it is towards the end, to be fair.
Yeah, and I think as well, I think the last race in Laguna Seca, I think that one hampered him as well going into this last round. You've seen where he was, but even then, SGP still did really well to recover, and he still managed to get another second place in that race.
Yeah, well, I think you're absolutely right there. I mean, if we look back to Laguna Seca, I mean, unfortunately, there were issues with the lobby, which SGP did say afterwards that for the first sort of 20 minutes of the race, for qualifying in the first sort of 20 minutes of the race, there was a lot of external stuff going on that just took his concentration. So one of the reasons that he pitted early in Laguna Seca was to get away from the pack and just try and get his rhythm back, and by doing that he managed to get himself a second place. Sometimes external things happen, and when you're in admin you have to deal with them. I mean, there's no blame there to anyone, but when you look at it, it's kind of like, if you're driving home from work and you always drive home the same way, but one day you decide, actually, I'm going to go this way instead, and then when you get home you find out there's been a massive car crash the way that you would have gone and you would have been involved in it. Is that luck or is it something else? Well, I'm kind of looking at this in a similar way. If SGP didn't have those external effects from the last race, he was on for winning in Laguna Seca. He had the pace, and that was shown by his recovery. If he beats Steve F1 in that race, it's not 5 points going into this race, it's 2 points. That is very different then, because then all SGP needs to do is win the race. If SGP wins the race, he wins the championship, because it's 3-point gap from first to second. That then is a very different scenario to what SGP has ended up having to do here, which was he needed other people. There was no point in him just running off and taking the lead and the win.
Yeah. So what you're saying is he would have been past SRI way before.
Oh yeah, he'd have overtaken SRI and he would have just gone, and he'd have basically put the gauntlet down to Steve F1 and said, keep up if you can. I do think we'd have seen a very different race, and one of the reasons I say that is because a couple of championships ago, I think it was in the Zanassin, there was a very similar situation with SGP and Steve F1. Steve F1 I think was ahead. No, it might not have been the Zanassin, but it was one of the championships. It was down to the two of them. It was the Mazdas. It was down to the two of them, and basically at the last race, SGP needed to win and needed Steve F1 to finish. Again, I think he needed a car between him. Well, on that occasion, SGP went, well, I'm going to go and do what I can do, which is I'll go and win the race, and what will be will be. He went and won the race. Steve F1 finished second. Unfortunately for SGP, it didn't work for him. So I think that is also why on this occasion he's gone, nah, you know what, I need to, if I can affect things in other ways, I need to do it. And unfortunately it hasn't worked, but it has given us an absolutely epic race there, I've got to say. SRI has done absolutely brilliant, and to be honest, I think this is going to be the highest championship finish he will have. I will mention as well that there are no penalties to be applied to this race, so Steve F1 will be confirmed as the champion. I'll tell you what, actually, I mean, normally I wouldn't do this, but I will actually sort of go through the constructor standings right now. Not the constructors, the driver standings.
Well, I think we know who's won the constructors if there was a constructors.
yeah, it would be the
was it German?
Masters. I didn't know there was any BMWs in here. But yeah, I mean, interestingly, Rich Blues did ask me about constructors a couple of races ago, and I'm kind of glad we don't do that.
If we cut the VWs out, it would have been alright. Yeah,
quite possibly. Okay, I'll tell you what, Connor, I will send you a picture of the final standings so that you have it as well. I will go through the race results. Now I will have to try and edit this on the video because it's different to what I normally do, and I don't want to send it to the main chat. But yeah, I mean, even though there was the battle for the win, there was still an absolutely fantastic battle throughout the rest of the field. I mean, I'm pretty sure Jimmy once again has had a brilliant result there. I would need to just double check that, but I'm pretty sure that he finished about 7th place. Okay, and I'm also pretty sure I just sent you the picture and it hasn't sent.
Yeah, I've got it.
Alright, okay. Ah, yeah, it's just a little delayed. Okay, so looking at it then, I'll go through the race result first. So confirmed race winner is Steve F1. Taking the maximum 20 points and the championship. SRI finishing in 2nd place, 17 points for him. What a race he's had around Spa. SGP finished in 3rd. I think he did everything he can in that last 20 minutes to get past SRI. Unfortunately, it wasn't enough. Demon Art finishing in 4th again, 13 points for him, just ahead of Mitch, who managed to sneak past Jason up to the finish line. So a drag race between an Alpha and a VW, and an Alpha won. Bloody hell. So Mitch finishing 5th and Jason 6th. Jimmy did finish in 7th place, so an absolutely brilliant result for him, ahead of Rich Blues in 8th. I mean, Rich Blues again, he's had his best results this championship. Conrad finished in 9th, which isn't bad actually, considering that he had to pit with 5 minutes to go, so 7 points for him. Bunsell finished in 10th with Hay in 11th. Fluffy Planet though down in 12th. He really does not like the Alpha. Gary 13th. I think something happened to Gary late on. I'm not exactly sure. And Dave the Harp finished in 14th. I think it was a tough race for Dave the Harp. We saw him. I mean, the Alpha's a bit like the Toyota around Spa. You dip a wheel and chances are you're going to be spinning. Okay, let's take a look then at the championship standings. So Steve F1, 161 points. Got to say, brilliant points hauled at. And yeah, as you were rightly saying, Connor, the VWs would take any constructors because no other car won a race.
four out of the top 6 positions are all VW.
You know what? I hadn't even spotted that. Yeah, and Tyler, I think, didn't race for 3 of the races. But yeah, I mean, fair play to Steve F1 and SGP. They deserve to be up there in a car that isn't easy to drive, but definitely better than all the others by the looks of things. Well, see, I still don't think that the VW is a better car. For the likes of SRI to be able to be up there holding them up, yeah, the Subaru's the better car. So SGP finishing in second once again, but it was close. Big gap to Demon R in third. I gotta say though, I really don't think Demon R was expecting to finish the championship in third in the Toyota.
Yeah, I don't think Demon R would have been expecting to be in the top 5 in the Toyota.
No, definitely not. And the other thing with that as well is, had Steve F1 and SGP been in the Toyota, it's possible that we still would have had the same 3 at the top of the championship, but other guys may have been closer, but we'll never know. Tyler finishes in 4th place. I've got to say, Tyler's had a brilliant season when he's been able to race. Took his first race win, and it wasn't even it wasn't by luck or anything else. It was simply pure, he was the fastest in that race.
Yeah, I think Tyler would have been definitely in there with Steve F1 and SGP had he been there every race. Yeah,
definitely. I do think this was potentially a championship opportunity missed by Tyler in many ways. I mean, imagine what effect it would have had on today's race as well had Tyler been able to race today in Spa.
He would have definitely been someone that SGP would have needed to put the pressure on Steve F1.
Yeah, and the thing is as well, I mean, I don't think Tyler drives it. He wouldn't have sat there behind the others going, okay, let's go. I don't think Tyler drives like that. He'd have been, no, I'm going to go past you, I'm gone, see ya.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, but still 4th place in the championship for him. Brewing. SRI though 5th place in the championship. I'm pretty sure that's his best result in a championship. 90 points, only one off actually beating Tyler, and I gotta say, probably one of the more entertaining drivers of the championship. Yes, he's had the assistance of the Subaru, but that's what they're there for. He's had a brilliant season, to be fair.
Yeah, definitely. I think he was my standout driver from this season. Really good season, really consistent and always up there.
Yeah, definitely. He's had a brilliant one. Jason finishing in 6th place. I mean, it's been an interesting season for Jason. I think he has missed 1 or 2 races. But he's also had some brilliant races as well. I mean, I've known Jason a long time. He's a consistent driver. We were talking about Steve F1's consistency last week. Jason's similar. I think he got unfortunate in today's race, getting caught up in a couple of incidents, but he still had a brilliant result. Last week he had a brilliant race against Mitch, same again today. I think 6th in the championship. I think he should be very happy with that result, to be fair.
Well, he didn't actually qualify, did he, Dave?
No,
so he's done really well to get a good, decent result. And yeah, 6th in the championship. And he's actually 27 points ahead of Mitch in the championship, so yeah, really good result.
Yeah, and I've got to say, I don't mean this in a bad way, but it's going to sound bad because I don't know any other way of saying it, but for me, Mitch has been the disappointment of the championship. Like I said, that sounds bad. What I mean by that is, when I saw the car lineups before this championship had started, my money was on Mitch or Dave the Ark to take the championship. Unfortunately for Mitch, he wasn't able to attend, I think, 3 of the first 4 or 5 races, and he wasn't able to get the practice in. So, I mean, it's not his fault, but that's kind of what I mean by is the disappointment, in that I think this was an opportunity of Mitch having a championship run. As if you put mute on, Connor, we can still hear your missus.
No, it's just
if she's flashing her Tic Tacs at you, everyone wants to know. But yeah, Mitch, I do think there was an opportunity there. I think Mitch, in that Alpha, with plenty of practice, would have been a massive threat throughout the whole of this championship.
Yeah, I think we heard a few people complaining about the Alpha this season, but yeah. I think Mitch still did really well, and yeah, I know what you mean. We could have seen him up there, and I think he struggled not in qualifying, because in qualifying he got some really good results. Maybe a couple of tracks he didn't put a lap in that he wanted to, but yeah, I think race trim he's just struggled a bit, I think.
Yeah, well, I think that's where like the practice comes. But it's like I look at it and go, in the races where Mitch has raced, I think he's finished in like 3rd, 4th, 5th. I think he had one where he finished a bit further down. But it's like, okay, without practice, you're finishing in those positions. If he'd have been able to get that bit of practice in and fall in love with the car a little bit more, I think we'd have seen him winning races. And that's where, because the Alpha is nearly as good as the Subaru off the line. So if Mitch had been able to qualify in amongst those VWs, he'd have been able to jump the VWs. Then he may have only had SRI ahead of him to battle and beat. So that's where, yeah, I think it's been an unfortunate championship for Mitch. For Dave the Harp in 8th place, like I say though, Mitch, do not take it, it's not a dig at being disappointed at you, although you should have bloody won the championship, you muppet. Dave the Harp in 8th place, I think he's going to be a little frustrated with that, because I know that Dave the Harp had said he wanted for the end of the championship to be the leading Alpha. Unfortunately, the way today's race has gone, that's not happened for him, with him finishing 14th. But Dave's had a very interesting championship, and forced to miss a race last week when the game wouldn't allow him to join the track.
Was it last week, or was it Austria that he missed? Was it last week?
I think it was last week, yeah.
Yeah, see, he was actually looking okay around Laguna Seca as well, so yeah. Maybe that 9 points gap that he's managed to have there at Mitch, it would have been less, because he would have outscored Mitch, I think, in that race, and then would have brought them closer together in this race. But unfortunately, he's had a bad race at Spa, and I think he'll be happy that the season's over in a sense, but he would have wanted to go out with a good result. Yeah,
definitely. I think everybody in an Alpha is going to be happy the season's over. Rich Blues finishes the championship in 9th place. I'm trying to think. I think in the last championship, I think he finished 10th place, so he may have gained a place here. But I've got to say, 49 points for Rich is a decent points haul. He's had his best result of the any of his championships, which was followed by his worst result. But that's by the by. That's the way it goes sometimes. But I've got to say, Rich Blues in that Subaru doesn't get time to practice, unfortunately. Busy with work and family. But for Rich, he's done extremely well this championship, I think, to be able to jump in that Subaru and just have fun and race.
Yeah, well, he's actually the second Subaru behind SRI and 2 points ahead of Gary, and Gary's not a slow driver, so Rich has done really well this season again.
That he has. Gary's another one where I think he had to miss a race or two, but also COVID hitting, moving house twice. Gary's had been going through a lot in the personal realm at the moment. So I know that this was a championship where Gary was a couple of months ago looking at it and thinking, I can win races in this. And to be fair, I was thinking that as well. Unfortunately, life gets in the way sometimes, and he wasn't able to get online and practice, and like I say, had to miss a race or two. So it's been probably a bit tougher on Gary than he would have liked, because he would have been approaching this thinking, I would have had a chance of winning races. But sometimes that's the way it goes. still a good result for him, 10th place, and ahead of Twilight, who I think has had a bit of a tough season in the Toyota, finishing in 11th place on 44 points. Didn't race today, obviously, and that's cost him a little bit in positions, but I don't think he'll mind it too much because he doesn't have to drive the Toyota again.
Yeah, I think that's what he'll be agreeing with you there, Dave, as well.
Yeah, definitely. Hay finishing is in 12th place. Good result, that, for me. Hayes had very much a sort of, I think, transitionary championship in terms of in the previous championship he was very new to DGT. He'd got himself involved in a few incidents, he was learning about the guys, getting to know the guys, and he kind of did a bit of a Jimmy and took a bit of a step back and tried to stay out of everybody's way. This championship is trying to get a bit more into it, and from what I can gather, the incidents have been a bit less, which is all good. So keep that progress going, I would say, Hay, and make sure you're not bumping into cars next year. You'll be absolutely fine. Fluffy, though, may be charging you for some tablets.
Yeah, Hay actually finishing 1 point ahead of a Subaru, so he'll be happy with that.
Yeah, he will. Jimmy finishing 13th. I've just noticed Fluffy has finished in position 145.
Yeah, I noticed that at the start.
I
noticed that at the start, but I didn't want to say anything in case it was, it's 145th with 32 points, so he's done really well there.
He has, yeah. I'm not going to change that either. So, yeah, Jimmy finished 13th. Again, Jimmy... I actually think Jimmy has had a brilliant championship. He's been driving so much better than we've seen him drive a lot. Again, he's a lot like Rich, busy working, busy family, doesn't get time to practice, but he's led races this championship. He's been fighting near the front in this championship. He's also been extremely unlucky in this championship, but it's been a brilliant one for him, I reckon. And when I look at it and go, you know what, Dave the Arp in 5th is on 52 points. There's only 12 points down to Jimmy in 13th. That's not a big gap. And with it being like 40, 41, 44, 40, it's so close in that sort of 8th, 9th down. Jimmy finishing where he has, I think it's actually a very good result. Conrad finishing 14th on 35 points. Probably feels he should have had a few more points at different times in this championship.
Yeah, missed a couple of races, Rage quit a couple of other races.
Toyota quit a couple of races.
Yeah, and just, he's had a couple of issues with steering wheels turning off and just messing up his own races, really, by not putting enough fuel in or pitting at the wrong time. So, yeah, I think another driver that will be happy to get rid of the Toyota. Yeah,
well, at the end of the day, there was two drivers that didn't get to choose. Sorry, three drivers that didn't get to choose which car they were going to be using in this championship. One of them was Demon R because the way the order of selection went, he had no choice. He was in the Toyota. The other was Hay, who coming in to replace Groover, so took on Groover's car. Conrad, I believe, came in as well as a replacement for somebody else, so the only car that was available there was the Toyota. So yeah, for Hay and Conrad, they didn't get to pick their car, and I think, to be fair, if you'd have had the opportunity of testing the cars, out of curiosity actually, if you'd have had the chance, we're not going to talk third person now, if you'd have had the chance of your order of selection, which order would you have picked?
Subaru, VW, Alfa Toyota.
Interesting. So potentially you probably would have been Alfa or VW there, depending on where your selection would have come. But yeah, I don't think, well, not many people would have picked the Toyota first. Anyway, it's been an interesting championship for Conrad, but we'll see how, we'll go back to talking to you in the third person now. We'll see how he gets on in the Mazda in the next championship, and I think there's a lot of drivers that are looking forward to that. Fluffy in 145th position.
Done really well to get 145th position there.
Yeah, he has.
He's still not last.
Yeah, he gets a bonus point. It begs the question, what position is Bunsell? I might have to have a look and see if I can see a tiny little M or B next to that number, bring in the millions and billions. But yeah, Fluffy's had a tough, very tough championship. In the last few championships, Fluffy has been finishing 5th, 6th in the championships. So for him to finish down in that position, yeah,
I don't think he'd be happy, will he? No. Even by the car, you always hear him.
Yeah.
Many words about the car, but never good.
Yes.
So I think he'll be happy at getting rid of the car. Not happy that he's finished down in 14th.
Yeah.
15th. Sorry. I don't think he'll be happy with. I think he'll feel like he's let the car down a little bit. I mean, the car was, it was it was meant to be one of the top 2.
Yeah.
And he's down there in 15th. So I think he'll be happy that he can move on to another championship and hopefully be back up where he wants to be.
Definitely. And Bunsell finishing in 16th place.
Bunsell doesn't care. He's just had a few door banging good races. He doesn't really care.
He doesn't, but at the same time, I know he does. He does.
Yeah.
I mean, Bunsell throughout the course of this championship has worked very hard on avoiding massive collisions, especially in the latter stages of the races. And even if nobody else will say it, I will say it. Well done, Bunsell. Keep it up. Because it does make a big difference to how much people can enjoy their racing. And I think that might be Bunsell's highest points haul, even though he had a 10-point penalty early on in the championship, I think. Or he had a penalty early on in the championship. So even though Bunsell has finished last, I know that he has absolutely loved racing that Toyota. Probably the only person that has, because he's just been enjoying it, throwing it sideways everywhere. He's just been having fun driving the car. And in that respect, that's, I think, what you perhaps mean about that Bunsell doesn't care. And in that respect, he doesn't. He just wants to enjoy himself. And even though he's finished last, he won't care about that because he's had a good, fun championship.
Yeah, he's had everything that he would want from a championship. He's had good battles, had some pace at some tracks. I think he did manage a 6th place at one of the tracks, so he's not short on setting good times.
Absolutely. There's definitely been an interesting championship, and we did talk last week as well that there should have been another driver in the race today. Cyber Gypsy, unfortunately, he wasn't able to actually compete in the race today, but we might see him in the Masters in the next championship. I just want to quickly say as well, just before I wrap up, I just want to say, Connor, thank you very much for joining us on the commentary today.
Yeah, it's been a good season. I've really enjoyed it, so hopefully next season's the same.
Hopefully. I'd also like to thank all the other guys that have helped out on commentary over the course of this championship, the likes of Rich Blues, Steve F1, Formula Gary, SGP and SRI, and also want to give a big thank you to SGP and SRI for putting on the championships, and also thanks to all the drivers for making it exciting and fun, because at the end of the day that's what it's all about. It's just about getting excited and having some fun. Talking of which, normally DGT would take 2 Thursdays off before starting the next championship. That's not going to happen this time around though. We're only going to have 1 Thursday off. So the Masters, the 787B Group 1 in the championship known as the Anniversaire de Historique, marking the 2 years of the Dynamic GT League, will start in 2 weeks time basically. I do know what date it was, I've just forgotten, but yeah, and that it's gonna come around quick, but so are the cars are gonna come around quick as well, because those cars are fast, they're loud, they're big, they're fun, there's no fuel saving, the races are going to be 10 minutes longer. There's a lot of people that have driven that car for the first time and gone, holy cow, this is good.
Yeah, it's just the tyre wear, isn't it? The tyre wear times 8, I think it is, and even the mediums are wearing out really quick, so we could see still some different strategies.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the tyres have been picked per track. It's one of those things, if you can push hard on the tyres and you can lean on them, but if you go sliding sideways around corners or locking up and going too hard on the brakes into corners or having spins and all this kind of stuff, your tyres will suffer. But if you look after them a little bit, you can push, because that's the thing with this car. You can go as fast as you want as long as you get your braking points right, the tyres will look after you, and then it's just great fun, great noisy fun. It's going to be interesting to try doing the commentary on it with how loud the cars are, but we'll see how we get on. Anyway, time to wrap up. So thank you everyone for helping, for joining, for taking part. Make sure you like and subscribe if you want to, and yeah, come and check out Dynamic GT League in a couple of weeks when we start off the Anniversaire de Historique. Have a good one everybody, and we'll see you all again soon.